So the PlayStation VR, the first generation, was a very interesting concept from PlayStation, or from Sony perhaps, and I think it was a really, really cool thing. So let's go and see how it holds up in 2023, and I will tell you, first of all, if you want to buy this, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, some background, if you're not too familiar with the VR headsets that, Sony or PlayStation makes, essentially it came out in 2016. And I'm not even super familiar with these specific VR headsets. I'm kind of familiar with VR headsets in general. And I knew about these ones. I just never really actually bought one until maybe about a week ago. So with these specific headsets, when it came out in 2016, it was supposed to be kind of like a companion device to your PlayStation 4. So this was not like a standalone device. You had to go ahead and have a PlayStation 4 already at that time in order to actually use this. Since then, the PlayStation 5 has came out, and this thing is also backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5 with the specific, USB port thing, which is actually really, really cool. So in this case, you are getting that PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation VR headset kind of combined. So you have to go ahead and make sure you have a PS4 in order to actually use this thing. That is a really, really big difference between like this and maybe like a, Oculus Quest 2 or Meta Quest 2, whatever you want to call it. Now on the outside, clearly a lot of these VR headsets look very similar to each other. They're going to look similar probably for the next like 5 to 10 years until we start getting like way different designs. But I will tell you, for this specific, headset, it is actually fairly decent quality. Now, the introductory price of this thing was $400, but throughout the years, the price tag of these things have gone down. The one I have, I think I bought it for like less than $200. So they have gone down quite a bit. And, it's good. I'm surprised that these things are still, selling for that much, considering that the next generation's already out, but it is what it is. Now, internally, there is an interesting thing going on here too. So with the headset, it is a 5.7-inch OLED display inside of it. So when you put these things on, it's fairly comfortable. I don't really have too much to complain about there, but you are getting that full-on display inside that is very similar to other devices. Now, within this specific headset, you are getting a few things. One, you are getting that display, which is nice. Apparently it's a 90 to 120 hertz, which is really cool. I love having that. And you are getting a few different things built into the box as well, because there are lots and lots of accessories in order to actually use this thing, which is pretty insane. So you have to like plug this thing into your actual PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 now. And even within the box, there's so many wires, but they do give you a good idea of how to use this thing. Like, it is a fairly straightforward process. But like I said, you do have to have the PlayStation 4 in order to actually use this thing. So you kind of have to keep that in mind in the back of your head. So if you're trying to buy this thing and you're not owning a PS4 or PS5 and you don't have the adapter, well, it's not really going to work for you. Now, you are also getting those controllers built into the box as well. Now, the controllers themselves are very interesting because they're just a very interesting design choice from, Sony. I think they're not ugly. I don't think they're, not good or anything, but I do think that they could have done a little bit of a better job. Like, they kind of look like, the Star Wars lightsabers, but just like cut down a lot. But, I think it's interesting. I think they still hold up very well, and there's not too much to complain about there either. But I do like the design of the PlayStation VR headset. I think it looks very cool. It looks very nice. And it kind of looks almost like the Oculus logo when it's turned on, which is very, very interesting in and of itself. Now, what else is there to talk about with this headset? That is kind of everything we have on the outside. But for the most part, there's still a lot of capability within this specific device for the most part. So for one, you are still getting, games available for this thing. It's not like this thing has, is unsupported with games that are available. This thing has tons of games available from the PlayStation Store that are, ready and usable for your VR headset, which is really cool. There's also ways that you can go and like watch movies on this thing if you want to, or if you want to watch whatever. You have that type of capability, which is really cool. It's also fairly comfortable. Like, it's really not that much to complain about here, which is really cool. And I've never really had too many issues, with the PlayStation VR headset. Keep in mind, I haven't been using this thing for like years. It's only been like a week or two, but I've been familiar with it, and I really haven't had too many problems with this thing. The setup thing was a little bit annoying because you do have to go through and you do have to like set this thing up. So that can be kind of annoying. And because you do have to have a PlayStation 4 already there, it is a different concept than something like an Oculus Quest headset or, some of these other headsets out there, because you do actually have to have, a separate console with you. With those other headsets, like an Oculus Meta Quest 2, you are able to use that thing on its own. You don't have to plug anything in. That one is also a beefier console or a beefier headset, but you don't really have to plug anything in, and it's like not that big of a hassle to go ahead and buy that thing because you don't already have to have a console. But I will say, a really good thing about these PlayStation VR headsets that we have nowadays, like the PSVR 1, is that you can buy a PSVR 1 and a PlayStation 4, and because those things have gone down in value so much, they're not as expensive as they used to be. So I think that is a really big asset for the PlayStation VR headset, because yeah, before you had to spend $400 on the headset and then maybe like a couple $100 more for a PS4 if you already didn't have one. I will say with the PSVR 1 now, most people already have some sort of PlayStation 4 living in their house, but on top of that, you also don't have to spend a lot more money on a console if you already don't have one. So I think that's been something that's been really cool. And that in and of itself is a really cool thing for the VR 1. But the best thing I would say, and something that I really do like what Sony did here, was that they did make it backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5. Now, they didn't have to do this. They already knew they were going to make the PSVR 2, but I really do appreciate how Sony did make the PSVR 1 backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5. And on top of this is the coolest thing. And there is a free PlayStation camera adapter that Sony will basically send you, or PlayStation will send you, because you're the owner of a PSVR 1. So even they could have made probably even more money if they just made you buy it or whatever, but that's a really cool thing that they did too. So I think this is a really long play from Sony, and they probably want people to go ahead, once they buy their headset, they want to have that as its own, they want to be in the VR space. They know there's probably a ton of money to be made here, and they're willing to give up a little bit of money, like sending out these camera adapters to work with your PlayStation 5, just to still maintain, competition and, maintain dominance in that space. And I think that's fair, and I think that's a really cool thing. So personally for me, I look at something like the PlayStation VR 1, and the fact that they made it backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5 is really cool. And again, that is one of my favorite things that Sony's ever done. The backwards compatibility for all their devices is really good. And again, that is a really cool thing that they ended up doing. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll tell you is I definitely do think that the PSVR 1 is still worth buying in 2023. But you do have to keep in mind that the PSVR 1, is the first generation here. There is already the PlayStation VR 2 that's already available. And if you want to get the latest generation, that PSVR 2 might be the better way to go for a majority of people. I would probably argue that if you're in the market, if you're able to spend a little bit more money, getting that PlayStation VR 2 might be the better way to go. I'll make a follow-up video of this, basically on what the capability and everything, the differences are between the PSVR 1 and PSVR 2. But I do think that if you have the money, go for it. But the PSVR 2, it's going to be here for many more years, so you don't even have to buy it today if you don't want to. But the PSVR 1 has already been here for a few years. And if you have a PlayStation 4, you might as well go for the PSVR 1. But even if you have a PlayStation 5, you should consider the PSVR 1 too. It's a cheaper option. It's giving you kind of the same experience a little bit. The controllers are a little interesting, but I think beyond that, I think Sony did a great job at least making it backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5. And I am, I'm happy with the way the PSVR has been holding up so far. So that pretty much covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.